Hi, everybody. Ruth here, and with me is Gil Pentzak, who many of you know already, as Gil and I have been working together for so long now. But we find ourselves in the midst of probably the most excruciatingly painful time in the history of Israel, of the nation, since the Holocaust. And in a sense, it's very, very different because we are all invited into it somehow because of communication, and we can read about it and see about it, whether it's true news or whether it's fake news. We're being pulled into this whole scenario, and it's very, very hard to really get a handle on it and begin to understand it. But for those of you who are or have been following it, we find ourselves now, we've exceeded the 500 days of the war, and we're in the middle of this so-called ceasefire where hostages are being released back to Israel in exchange for huge amounts of Palestinian terrorists. And it all just seems so unreal and so unfair and so cruel. And so I wanted to ask Gil to, if you can, share your heart. Like, how is this? How is it for you? How is it for the nation? Um, Try and invite us in.
Oof. Well, it's no problem to invite you in. I mean, it's as sad as it is to say. I mean, the door is open, and I think it's important that anybody who cares about Israel would walk in and be part of it. I know that there are a lot of people who have been praying for Israel, since the war started and even before that. And it's all very, very important, and we don't take it for granted. These prayers and these good intentions. It's very much heartwarming. It's a good opportunity to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, personally, um, for all those who are taking the time to do so.
Mhm.
So thank you, first of all. It's tonight is I'm not quite sure exactly when this will be when you will use this video, and things in Israel are happening so fast,
Mhm.
and things are changing so fast. I mean, from in a couple of hours, I mean, the picture looks entirely different. There is a lot of uncertainty.
Well, the date
uh,
now is Wednesday, 19th of February,
Yeah,
2025.
that's important to say. So it's Wednesday, it's the February the 19th. In Israel right now it's 9:45 in the evening, so that means that perhaps less than 12 hours from now on Thursday morning, the way that according to the latest update, um, we will be receiving four dead bodies of hostages. Uh, According to what Hamas has to say, not that we ever believe what they have to say, but according to what they say, three out of the four are the Bibas family. It's the mother and two children, Shiri Bibas and her children, Kfir and Ariel. And they don't say anything about the fourth body. You can imagine the tension, of families not knowing what happened to their loved ones, not knowing when they're going to come back, all throughout, the current deal of returning 33 hostages, 25 alive and 8 dead hostages. All throughout this time, they always waited to the last minute to say exactly who is going to come back and when. It's psychological terror. Okay, it's another form of terror, which is bad in its own. It's very, very difficult. And I think that when we speak about what we're going through at the moment, I think we need to divide it to two things. Many often I hear people talk about what is being done, and then the other person would say, so what do you think needs to be done? What do you think Israel should do?
Mhm.
And I don't think that that's a right question to ask. I don't think it's a fair question to ask. I think that we can all talk about the general idea of what is it that we want? What is it that should happen? All the technicalities, the details of how to get to that point, we should leave that to the professionals. I mean, we need to leave it to the leaders. Okay, people who are dealing with it, the leaders in government, leaders in the military, leaders in governmental ministries. That's not ours to decide. I mean, well, the thing is, but we can and we should, and we have every right to look at what is going on and to connect with what we know that God has to say about the situation. We have His word. I mean, and nothing that happens now, none of that is something that did not happen before. Okay, history. I mean, when we talk about, the biggest tragedy, the biggest massacre in our history, it's only the recent history of our history as a nation, or maybe the history, let's say, of 100 years or 150 years. But this is a nation that goes back 3,800 years, all the way back to Abraham, all the way back to Abraham. So 400 years in Egypt, being slaves in Egypt with terrible persecutions, with our babies thrown into the Nile, all kinds of laws, to discriminate us. I mean, that's something that happened. We need to remember that. I mean, we always have our resources to go back to, and to see. So what happened there? I mean, what was the will of the Lord in those incidents, in those moments? And whenever we do this, we see that in such difficult times, it looks like there is a lesson that needs to be learned. And the lesson is not just for the Jewish people. The lesson is sometimes bigger than that. It's for the entire world. If we think about the Jewish people being saved, from Egypt, being delivered out of Egypt, that message is a universal message. It's the message about the words, "I am the Lord." It's a learning process that the entire world must go through, including ourselves. I am the Lord. So what does it mean? God says to Moses, there's a verse in Exodus 6, Exodus 6 verse 2, when it says, God spoke to Moses and he said to him, I am the Lord.
Right.
I am the Lord. Forget about what you see in front of you. Forget about the earthiness of incidents. You've just now gone out from Pharaoh, and you told him, let my people go, and you thought that he will be impressed, by the signs and wonders that you're going to perform. And then he refused, and he made things worse for the people. The people are mad at you. Okay, I mean, I understand that on an earthy level.
Mm.
But God saying to him, I am the Lord, and by my name, Lord, I did not show myself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I was only known to them as God Almighty, as El Shaddai. The whole world is going to see a whole different God, a whole different level of him revealing himself.
Mm.
It's a different kind of revelation. It's something different. I am the Lord. It's about rules of nature changing, being broken, shattered, ignored, just for him to execute his will,
Mm.
to take out his children from a place of bondage, from house of bondage.
Yes.
It's about that, and everything that has been going on with the Jewish people ever since is about projecting something not just for us, but for the entire world. And that's why I said, the door is open. We are all in this learning process. You said, so what does it feel? Of course, it feels there's anxiety, there is tension, there is a lot of stress, there is pain, there is disappointment because we prayed and we hoped and we believed, and now to see that it's not exactly moving, as we according to the plan that we had in our minds. But we all have to remember, it's in the end, it's all about the words, I am the Lord.
Mm.
There is a huge overall master plan for the entire world. The entire world, we say, when the days before Mashiach comes, we have a metaphor for that. It's like woman in labor. It's birth pangs.
Mm.
It's painful, but we must remember that new life is about to come from this pain. When Ezekiel is giving his metaphor, right? I passed by you and I saw you lying in your blood, and I told you, in your blood you shall live. In
Mm,
your blood you shall live. It's very much about birth. The woman is lying in blood, but new life, it's a sign of new life coming to the world. And it's not just an attempt to comfort ourselves, that this terrible situation we're in is actually a good sign and all. We know that it is. It must be because we are in the hands of the Lord and He's all good.
mm,
It's not always easy to see that. We have to believe in that. We're not just telling the story just to comfort ourselves. It is actually like that. When we look back at our history and we see how one thing led to the next and one thing led to the next, and from the terrible catastrophe that happened in Europe 85 years ago, the birth of a Jewish nation came. Would we have had a country, a state, if it hadn't been for what happened? We don't know. We don't know. And it's not like we're saying, oh, good thing, 6 million lives. No, we never say that. It's not it. But we are, I think it's our duty to see how one thing leads to another and one thing leads to another. When sometimes we can only do that when we look back. We can't do that, on the spot. I mean, right now, in the moment, we should feel the pain. We should shed a tear. We should and we have to mourn for all the loss that we are experiencing, that we have been experiencing in this war. But still to remember that there is meaning to the whole thing.
mm,
There is meaning. I am the Lord. The things don't just happen for no reason. And it's a learning process that we are going through, that the whole world is going through. And nobody said that fighting against darkness would be easy, that vanquishing evil from the world will be swift and painless.
mm,
It's a process, but which we are being expected to do without feeling apologetic, ashamed to say that we are fighting the darkness, physically fighting the darkness. And I think that, tomorrow's events, this is Wednesday now, but talking about tomorrow's events and past week's events, the way we saw the hostages returning and, the whole show of humiliating them in front of the mob, standing on stages, holding diplomas and being given, goodie bags from Gaza. It's low and it's cruel and it's brutal, and it's our responsibility to say that
yeah,
without apologizing, something that we cannot accept. And it's not about one's narrative, and it's not about the context, it's not about any of that. It's saying objectively what is right and what is wrong, what is considered to be light to the world and what is considered to be the worst kind of darkness. And this is where we're at, more or less, to be able to differentiate. And I think it's an invitation for the rest of the world to do the same. Are we able to differentiate between the two, good and evil? Are we able to look at things and actually identify what is good and right and what is evil and wrong?
mm.
That's more or less where we are at the moment.
And if I was to ask you, how can we best pray? Is it about entering into the suffering, or is it?
I don't think it's a well. I never say to one, how to pray. I mean, that's something very intimate and something that you should choose. Um, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily entering into the suffering. There is reason. There is a reason why the suffering was given to certain people. So it's not about entering into the suffering. You don't have to feel it. You don't have to be persecuted to feel the solidarity. Or to stand alongside us, in prayer. I think that, well, there are a lot of things to pray for, but first and foremost is to pray that we have the strength to carry on, to go all the way with it,
Mhm.
not to let go, not to give up, not to lose faith,
Right.
not to lose hope, to continue and see more and more the fulfillment, the realization of the words, I am the Lord. So so that we really have the strength, because I'm telling you, it's it's strength is something you have you have a limited amount of it when you talk about millions of people in your nation. And I'm saying this as a father to children. You explain to them and you pray with them and you wish with them and you hope with them. But then when it doesn't happen, or like when the opposite happens, it creates a crack
Yes.
in faith, which is also maybe considered to be a positive thing, because that's when we are being tested.
Mm.
But just to pray for strength, pray for wisdom for our leaders mainly, so that they will have the wisdom and the bravery, the courage, to really live up to the expectation that our Father in heaven has for us. I think that would be the most accurate way to pray.
Thank you, Gil. And just want to assure you that, well, you know, but so many are praying and really holding you in our hearts. So, yeah, thank you for the reminder. I am the Lord.
Thank you.
That's so great.
Thank you.
Okay, bless you and saying goodnight
Thank
for
you.
now.
God bless you.
Yeah,
God bless you. Thank you
bye
very
bye.
much.
Bye bye.